Okay, guys, I want to go ahead and begin our lesson with today's concept here. And yesterday we talked about, or actually rather today, we talked about properties of different parallelograms. And what's kind of neat about this is if you have to prove that a shape is a parallelogram or you want to verify that a shape is a parallelogram, there's actually a shortcut to go, right? You don't have to go through all the, all the properties, right? Because there's really about 6 or 7 different properties that we learned about in class today. So this gives you a shortcut. There's only, basically 4 ways to actually determine if a shape is a parallelogram. So this is kind of a neat little trick. So this is going to be leading into tomorrow's lesson, and so this is the 4 things I want you to know that you will need to know for the quiz tomorrow. So here we go. The first one is that we have a pair of opposite sides that are both. Now that's the key word there. Okay, we are both parallel and congruent. So what that means is if I have a pair of sides, opposite sides, that are congruent, so that takes care of my congruency, and they are both parallel. Okay? So that's what that one means. So if you have, and what's kind of cool about this, we don't have to worry about the other 2 sides. If you have a pair of sides that are both parallel and congruent, then that makes it a parallelogram automatically. Everything else must follow suit because of that concept. But we're not always given that information. So let's suppose we are given something else. In this problem here, if both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, so what that means, we have a pair of opposite sides there that are congruent, and we have these 2 sides that are congruent. Therefore, we are a parallelogram. Again, neat little shortcut. Okay. Notice in this particular one, you're not told anything about the slopes. You don't know if they're parallel or not, but it doesn't matter. If both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, then it's a parallelogram. Okay, now this actually kind of ties back into the lesson from today, and that is that if the diagonals bisect each other, it makes it a parallelogram. So if my diagonals cut each other in half, then I'm a parallelogram. Okay, so that's kind of a neat little trick there. And then the last one is if both pairs opposite angles are congruent. So if these 2 angles are congruent and these 2 angles are congruent, then we are a parallelogram. So those are your 4 ways to show that a shape is a parallelogram. If I were you, I would pause this presentation right now and I would make sure that you have the definition of each one of these and an image, which I have shown you here, that models each one of those. Because what you're going to do on your homework is it's going to say, here's a shape. Tell me if it's a parallelogram. All you got to do is see if it fits one of these 4 models. If it doesn't, then it's not a parallelogram. Okay, so go ahead and pause. Make sure you get all this information down. And then go ahead and unpause it and we can go ahead and move forward. Okay. So let's take a look at some of those. Let's take a look at number 1. Is the shape in number 1 a parallelogram? Well, let's look at it. What do we know? Well, I know that this pair of opposite sides are congruent, and I know then that this pair of opposite sides are congruent. So does that fit one of the 4 models? Well, let's go back and check. According to this one right here, both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. That makes it a parallelogram. So number 1 is yes. Okay, take a look at number 2. Does number 2 fit one of the 4 options? Well, let's analyze this a little further. I do have a pair of opposite sides that are congruent. Oh, that's interesting. And I have another pair of sides that are parallel. But remember, if we go back to here, we go back to our first one, what we're told here is that these need to be both parallel and congruent on the same side. So if we look at number 2, That does not fit any one of our 4 options, so therefore that is a no. But if we do look at number 3 fits that option, so that is a yes. Okay. So in class tomorrow, we're going to go over a little bit more of this concept, but we're going to do it with algebra integration. And so that's something to just look forward to. But I want to make sure that you guys know about these 4 properties before we come into class. So please make sure that you guys have those written down. And again, don't forget, if you have those in your notes, you can use that on the quiz. All right. And I hope you guys have a good night.